Hello everybody, this is Brian from Breaking Down Security. This is part 2 of our interview with Daniel Cuthbert and Jim Manico on the Application Security Verification Standard, version 4. Since the time that we recorded this, which was about 2 weeks ago, version 4.01 has come out, and you can go to the GitHub site in the show notes and download the latest copy. So before we get started, we're going to do a few announcements. Workshop Con still going on. If you're interested in getting some top shelf training from people like Spectre Ops and Tim Tomes, you can go to www.workshopcon.com. That's going to be held in the Boston area. If you're going to have to make your way up to Boston, but there's you can still sign up for classes and get involved with the red team operations being done by Spectre Ops and practical web application pen testing with Tim Tomes, which are both, I hear, excellent classes. So please go check that out if you're interested in doing those classes. Training is at the end of the month, April, I believe. The classes start June 4th through June 7th for the red team class, and June 5th to June 7th of this year for the practical web application pen testing course. So, go check those out if you're interested. Source Boston, which is also in Boston, Massachusetts. Mr. Rob Shane, good friend of ours, good friend of the show, does his yearly Source conference there. A lot of great speakers, a lot of excellent leaders, and people that a lot of good technical talks. So you always get a good time if you go and hang out with Source Conference. And Rob's an excellent speaker in his own right, and you'll learn quite a bit. So if you're interested in going to that, trainings will be from April 29th and 30th, and then the conference itself is from 1st, 2nd, and 3rd of May. So you can sign up, go to sourceconference.com/events/Boston19. Something that came across our Slack channel in the HallwayCon channel this week, Cybernauts CTF meetup in Austin, Texas is happening the 23rd of April from 5 p.m. Central Time to 11 p.m. Central Time. They do a lot of interesting things. Let me pull that up here. They meet on the 2nd and 4th Tuesday of every month. A group of local Austin hackers meet at the Indeed Tech campus. The agendas at each meetup vary greatly, but generally they pick some publicly available CTF-style challenges and attempt to work through them. So it's a 6-hour meetup, the 2nd and 4th Tuesday of every month. Group is open to anyone, and skill level of the group is quite diverse. So if you're new to CTFs, don't feel like you can't make it or you'll get lost. There's more than enough people there, I would assume, that can mentor you or help get you a leg up if you're willing to learn. They do have a website, HTTPS website, cybernauts.team. So CYBERNAUTS. And it has recaps, agendas, and resources to learn more about information security. So there you go. They do ask you to RSVP so they can get rough head count for food and drinks. So it sounds like you get free dinner and all the drinks you can get from the Indeed office if you're interested. All right. So on a more personal note, before we get started, I just found out, I'm recording this on the 6th of April. A friend of mine was feeling poorly. He was in the hospital, and he's now on the mend. And I just wanted to send my thoughts to Andy and tell him that I'm glad he's still on this planet with me and with us. And it wouldn't have been the same if he'd shuffled off this mortal coil. So I'm glad he's still here with us, and I look forward to seeing him in the near future. So. All right, let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start this portion of the show. I asked a question about the ASVS document itself. There are several sections that are blank or a work in progress. And the ones I specifically called out were the session management and API sections, which as of 4.0 were blank. 4.01 and later versions might have those filled in, but when we recorded this back at the end of March, they were not available yet. So I asked why they weren't filled out, and because they seem quite important for a web application or a to be verified, because session management and APIs are usually run hand in hand with any kind of complicated web application. So that's the question that we started with, and what you'll hear is Jim Manico taking the first part of that question. So have a great week.
Well, it's just squeaky wheel stuff, right? If you have, we're going to have a 4.01 coming out, or 4.01 enhancement. If you see anything critical that's missing, we're eager to get your feedback. Give us a GitHub issue, and we'll consider it for the next dot release. And you're right, with APIs, traditional session, and again, we have traditional session management covered pretty well in previous versions. APIs are moving away from session management. They tend to use stateless mechanisms like JSON web tokens and other standards around that. So the way session management is done in a stateless API, it's unfortunately a completely different ball of wax. Like in a normal session, when you log out, you call invalidate on the session and you're done. When you have stateless tokens, log out becomes painful. I have to put revoke lists at different API endpoints now. That's not supported by the framework like we see in sessions. These are the things that we address. Some of it in ASVS, probably not enough. And what's your name, Mr. Host? What was your name again, sir? I'm sorry.
I'm Brian Brake.
So Brian, what I heard you say is that you're extremely eager to take your wisdom and provide us some issues at the ASVS GitHub so we can enhance the next version. I'll be expecting your comments.
Great. I got voluntold. Yeah. No, I'm just a filthy manager. I just work at a company that deals with a lot of APIs and a lot of web applications on a semi-regular basis. So, I was scrolling down through here because I was like, oh, we might, use some of this for activities or, that we would test against on engagements. And I was like, oh, there's no session management. Okay.
So the API stuff was something that I contributed quite a bit to. And yes, it's not complete, but we too use a lot of APIs. Banking is moving to PST2. And I agree with Jim. Session management and APIs, your life is going to be very miserable.
Right.
I can just tell you this. But as with all things in the standard, it's user-driven, it's community-driven. So there's I think for 4.01, there's a lot of stuff I will probably add to the API stuff. But I think looking at that section at the moment, there's some good solid advice in there for APIs. So don't discount it.
Okay. All right. So one of the other things, this kind of reads like when I was doing consultancy for HIPAA and hospitals and such back in the day, back in 2011, 2012, when the Office of Civil Rights was starting to do their audits, and it was the new hotness, and now everybody's quaking in fear of millions and millions of dollars in fines. There was two different ways you could do a HIPAA requirement. It was either this is how you're going to do it, or we're going to tell you what the end product should be, and you need to get there. They called them addressable, and it was a little odd. Your whole document appears to be a lot of addressable findings. It's like, for instance, 121, verify the use of unique or special low privilege account, low privilege operating system accounts for all application components, services, and servers. You don't tell people how to do it. You're just, this is where you need to be. And then you allow people to make judgment calls based on whether or not they've actually verified that. That was a level 2 finding on page.
Yes. In some cases, I'll agree with you. In other cases, we're giving very specific advice. But yeah, overall, we're pointing in the right direction, not being completely prescriptive. I think that's fair.
Mm-hmm. And also, if you look at other standards that's trying to address some kind of security around, say, payment processing, their language hasn't helped. We still have applications that get pwned all the time through basic web apps, but they might be compliant to other standards. So what we try to do with the language in this standard would be not so forceful, if that's the right word. You're an adult, you know what to do. You know your application much better than anybody else. This is what we think is the right thing to do, but you make a decision based on all the other external factors that you have that we have no idea what they are.
Right. Okay.
And Brian, I'm going to go back to one thing you mentioned. You're talking about the lack of web service requirements. I want you to go back in the doc and dig a little deeper. Go look at the session. Look at group 3, right? 3.1. There's 20 session requirements. There's a section on federation. There's a section on stateless tokens. There's a statement on traditional sessions. We have the right requirement categories, but you may think that we need to flesh it out a bit more, and I'm all for that. I really want to get your feedback more directly to hear what's missing from it. There's also a web service section as well that covers a few API-specific issues. So I think all the categories are there, but we may need to flesh it out a bit more. And again, the only way we can pull that off is to get feedback from people like yourself who've been in the industry for a while and have concerns. So again, Brian, looking forward to your feedback, buddy.
Sweet. Well, I thought maybe, if you've got all the session bits down here at the bottom, why does the session management bit need to be at the top? Maybe that could be moved down to this section, and that would very, satisfy a lot of that.
This is hard because we have a web service section with things like we're talking. We have a web service section and a session section. There are so many requirements that could fit into 3 categories or 4 categories, and that's the hardest part about this. We don't want to duplicate requirements, but there are some requirements that could be business, that could be API, that could be session based, and that could be validation based. So, so we argued about this quite a bit, and no one's going to be happy with some of the requirements that could have fit into multiple categories. We did the best we could. And again, Brian, any feedback, baby, we're ready for you.
Look, I'm just the coach on the sidelines yelling at my kids, people, and so.
No, that's how I feel most of the time.
Yeah.
And Brian, even just giving us criticism is actually really helpful. It is. Even in this venue, it's helpful. Giving us criticism in GitHub is even more helpful. Following up on the GitHubs with continued conversation, that's even more helpful. So I'm using this as an example for everybody out there. We have one community that just loudly complains, and we still listen, but that's only so useful. But we have others who complain intelligently in GitHub against individual issues and have the conversation with us. That's a way to affect change in a really powerful way. Anybody on the planet could jump in and help us with this. Our role as a leadership crew is to filter, make sure they're good, make sure they get through our bar for technically competent requirements. But we need those of you who are concerned to participate in Git. And we moved to GitHub to make it easy for everybody to give us those comments. So I can't say it enough. Brian, what I'm really trying to say, Brian, is we need you, Brian. We need you.
Wow. All right. You're making me blush over here.
Just in case you haven't heard that today yet, Brian.
No, I'm getting all blushy here. My 40-year-old ass is starting to getting blushy here. So, go ahead, Amanda.
Okay. So something that I've been working on lately at work is I have to create all these detection things. I work at MSSP, and we're creating this detection software that looks at logs for security stuff. So I'm currently using the attack matrix and going through every step and creating all of these different detections that I could use based on that. Is there any way I would be able to use this in kind of a similar manner? I know a lot of this, not necessarily. I look for the word log just in the spreadsheet in general, and there's almost 50 different categories or whatever that talk about logging, but I didn't know if you had any ideas around that.
I'm opening it up right now. Go, Daniel.
You're trying to use the MITRE attack in a similar way?
That's what I'm doing with MITRE right now. Okay. And that's how I'm building a lot of our detection rules, I guess we're calling them. And a lot of those aren't based on web apps, I guess. So I just didn't know if anything in here would be able to point me to other things to test or to write. I'm not a software developer, so really I just look at logs all day. But
so this is the first time I've ever actually heard anybody mention this, and it's quite cool. You're going to get me going down a rabbit hole now.
Well, the one thing that got me on it,
MITRE now has this thing where you can submit your software, and they will tell you how close you are to detecting all the things on the attack matrix. And like my personal goal and like the goal for our little tiny company is to get as many of those as we possibly can, where a lot of the other like large companies aren't even hitting close to like 25%.
Yeah, one of the things that I was looking at was some of your sections here. You have the common weakness enumerations, which was really nice, and you can map against that. And I was talking about how it's it just tells you how to do something, and then versus being addressable, or here's what the endpoint should be. And a lot of the CWE stuff have code snippets that tell you exactly how to do something. For instance, like 602, which was the one I was talking about earlier, it's CWE, and you get server-side Perl script in this case, which is god awful, but there is examples on how to do these things in there. So that got me on the idea with MITRE being the attack matrix framework folks that Ms. Berlin might be able to use this.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that this is best used for the developer and the tester, right? This is for a developer and a standard body to drive how to build secure software. It should also inform the tester of how to really do a complete assessment. I know a lot of times when I hire pen testers, I have to trust them. They do some things. I get my report, and I hope they were thorough. ASVS, and what I like from pen testers is I want you to report to me what you found and what you didn't find. I want you to let me know that you verified that all sensitive data is identified and classified in our documentation, different protection levels. I want you to verify that document exists as part of your complete assessment. And this should help inform the tester to help them up their game to be more complete at testing. I know a lot of testers, I put ASVS in one of two kinds of testers. One that said, this is horrible. You're telling me what to do in my job. I already know what I'm doing. Please keep this away from me. And another group that was like, this is awesome. Here's now a way that I can show, clearly how thorough I'm being. So those are the two major use cases. And Amanda, I want to make sure that your question's heard. I didn't hear you. I still don't understand what you're asking. Can you tell me one more time just to make sure I got it, please?
Yeah, sure. So let me see if I can find an example in here. There's a lot about not logging. Crap.
No pressure.
I probably should have found a good example before I asked the question.
No, go ahead. Just give.
So there's one for MITRE for web service. But you're right. It's MITRE.
Looks like version 7 starts with error handling and logging verification requirements. Is that what you're looking for, Ms. Berlin?
I was trying to find
7X. Yep, 7X is the whole logging section.
Okay.
Logging processing requirements, protection requirements, error handling.
Like 711, verify that the application does not log credentials or payment details. Session tokens should only be stored in logs in an irreversible hash form. That's basically saying, please don't log painfully sensitive data.
Right,
I think.
Yeah. So in that,
I think we know of one large social media company that didn't quite do 711 very well recently, right?
Yes.
Right. So yeah, in that case, I would just be logging, or alerting on the possibility of that stuff being logged.
Oh, yes. Like maybe an alert for like a social security pattern or a credit card pattern.
Yeah.
We could definitely take 711 and put some. I see. You want to look at, Jim, how can ASVS inform me for log alert rules that I can detect attacks in progress? Is that I hear?
Pretty much.
No, that's not why it was written, and we would have to like extrapolate like we just did. But there's at least one 711. There's a rule. Let's grab another random one. See if we can do that. I'm grabbing 721 now. Verify that all authentication decisions are logged without storing sensitive session IDs or passwords. So in 711, we were talking about, that's a bit redundant here, but that's the same thing.
714 is a good one. So verify that each log event includes necessary information that would allow for a detailed investigation, a timeline when an event happens.
Awesome.
So like that necessary information, I mean, not like you guys could specify what that necessary information is, because that's going to be different depending on who you are, right? Like that's going to be the whole process of the fork thing.
But that should at least inform the developer, not just do random logging, to at least work with the incident response team or similar to conform to a specific standard so you get everything you want. I don't want your random dates. I might want a specific date synced up to my whatever, whatever you incident response magic people do.
Because the important information for the developer is going to be probably wildly different for the incident response or the security person.
And let's do one more, Amanda. Let's do 713. This is something you could definitely build a suite of rules on. Verify that the application logs security relevant events, including successful and failed authentication events, access control failures, deserialization failures, and input validation failures are all logged. Now, if you just, as an incident response log monitoring professional, if you had to make guesses at these events, you would pick some of them up, but it'd probably be inconsistent. But if you worked with the developer, and this is not discussed in the standard well enough, but if you worked with the developer to say, I need all authentication successes, all authentication failures, all access control failures, all the serialization and input validation failures, the developer could easily conform to a standard that's easy for your rule system to pick up live. And now we're hopping here. So ASVS is the core requirement, but that bridge between development and your world is even more important, I would dare say.
I mean, because honestly, we could never use, there will never be a time where there's too many logs, unless you're like paying for Splunk. But getting those logs in a usable format, I find that developers have a hard time with sometimes. It's just like a blob of text. And that makes it really hard to ingest it a lot of times.
But Amanda, JSON is your friend.
JSON
solves
is fine.
all.
JSON is a standard.
Oh, okay. All right.
And by the way, developers that throw blobs of text into logs, I mean, what are they doing? Because we have things like Log4j. We have formal logging abstractions in every major language, just so that doesn't happen. So
that is a great question. I don't know what those people are doing.
Yeah, I don't know either. By the way, Amanda, do you know the log song, by the way? Do you know Ren and Stimpy, the log song?
I do, yes.
Can we sing it right now just to have a shared? It's log,
I don't know if I remember
log.
it. I love it.
I will help. It's log, it's fun, it's heavy, it's wood. It's better than bad, it's good. That's all I know. So we just sung the Ren and Stimpy log song. That's your homework, everybody. Go YouTube, Ren and Stimpy log song.
We could probably add that to the end as outgoing music. And we already added the shark.
Baby shark.
So we could add the log song at the end.
I sort of add that in there.
You were worried about his jet lag? Yeah. You needn't worry.
Needn't worry. He's all on. He's all in. Yeah. There's a link in the show notes to the log song.
Perfect.
Yeah, there you go.
Someone told me that my last name Manico, it means handle, and in Venice, when you say full Manico, you mean full throttle on the boat. So, all right, Enough about me. Let's talk about you. Moving on.
So there's a question. There's level 1, level 2, level 3. Obviously, level 1 is supposed to be the base, like bare minimum. You call it bare minimum, which I'm not a fan of.
Automation only.
Yeah. Okay. For a company that wants to get to level 3 or even level 2, what kind of cost is involved with that? Like person time, raw money. I mean, what can you guys give us an idea for, I don't want to say a generic web application, but do you guys have any numbers or any metrics based on what it would take to get to level 2 or level 3? And I'm sure that
maybe a percentage, right?
Sort of. So we did a thing about a year ago where we weren't sure who was actually using the standard. And it's quite frustrating. You put a lot of heart and soul in it, and you hope people are using it. And at DevSecCon, a few people came up to me, and one of them was the UK's tax wing, HMRC, and they were actually doing level 3 for their tax collection applications. And, for obvious reasons, you don't want to get that pwned. But the cost associated with level 3 is high because it's literally, this is the bee's knees of application security. And as such, there's a big overhead for that. Not every single app needs to be a level 3. Just to put that out there. I'd expect certain things to be a level 3, healthcare, payments, that kind of stuff. But for everything else on the web, a level 2 is achievable. I've just finished a launch of a startup. We did that against level 2, and it didn't really add much to the overall cost. There was the initial threat modeling at the start. Jim, calm down. But everything else was part of the sprint because everybody knew what they were doing and what we were looking for and what we were all aiming for. So it wasn't like, normal web app will cost you, I don't know, $20,000. But if you want a level 2, it's going to cost you $28,000. We don't have those kind of numbers. But personal experience just launching a product, I didn't see a big overhead going level 2.
Okay. Because,
I like section 5, validation, sanitation, and encoding verification requirements. Jim, what you talked about with cross-site scripting, SQL injection, those are all taken care of right here. You do level 1 in section 5, which is pretty much required across the board. You take care of 90% of all that, right?
Absolutely. By design.
Yeah.
If you can't stop injection in your application, it's game over fast. So
WordPress, sorry, what?
If you are vulnerable to an obvious injection in your application, it is a game over event and fast. So you'll see all the major injection protection requirements required for all applications, as it should be. This is something you don't threat model. This is not something you think about or consider. This is something you do as a daily part of development or you're done. So that's what ASVS is trying to say here.
Yeah.
So should companies that want a quote unquote, we want a level 3, to check our level 3 pen tests, our
certification.
Certification. They should expect to have to spend a little extra money to have the pen test done in more than a 2-week engagement, right?
Whoa, level 3 is insanity. Keep in mind, we reserve level 3 for only a few audiences. Those who are building international infrastructure, those who are holding data for billions of people, those who are writing software that shoots missiles or is involved in warfare. So these are all groups with insane amount of money. That's a good thing. So I think level 1 for a modest size enterprise app is a week-long engagement. I think level 2 is a 2 or 3 week engagement. And I think level 3, there is no engagement. It's continuous assessment forever. So you don't just go in and do a level 3 pen test. That is nonsense. Level 3 says I'm doing continuous monitoring of all these risk categories 24/7 throughout my entire build deployment process. That's the message we were trying to get across, I would dare say.
But it says in the beginning, level 3 is for sensitive medical data and perform high-value transactions. That could be payment cards, right?
So that's my world, yes and no. The whole global payment system is, complex. And I think the best, most of them would get by with level 2. We're not downplaying level 2 at all. But for level 3, sure, if you want to stop Kim Jong from going after your stuff, great. But, level 2 will still give you a hell of a lot of security and good, solid engineering if you apply that.
Think of this, think of your average e-commerce app needs level 2. Think of the Visa infrastructure that processes cards, they need level 3. So again, level 3, let's read it. ASVS level 3 is for the most critical applications. Applications that perform high-value transactions, contain sensitive medical data, or any application that requires the highest level of trust. And I don't think that encapsulates, and Brian, I can see why you pointed this, Brian. What I really want to say here is something more along the lines of things that are international or government infrastructure, warfare, things that not an individual app that processes credit cards, but something that's more more like, again, repeating the word infrastructure. Like, for example, Amazon, they would have to be level 3 because of just how many cards they hold. They're holding billions of credit card records. So I'd put them in ASVS level 3, where your average e-commerce site doing, under $1 billion worth of damage, $1 billion worth of business a year, probably ASVS 2 is going to be sufficient.
I think damage was the right word there.
but medical devices are a special category, because if you look at medical devices are one of the first pieces of software that are really requiring threat modeling, and they're requiring a whole different level of insurance at the legal level in the US that other kinds of software don't. So I think medical fits into that. Yeah, I definitely want my heart rate. I definitely want my heart and lung machine to be ASVS level 3 to keep me alive. But I hope that helps Brian explain what level 3 is. And I think your concern about it is fair. It's not clear enough in the current doc.
Well, I would argue that the people that you suggest need level 3 are the ones that can barely reach level 1. Health and safety, critical infrastructure, they just they have a lot of money because they don't tend to spend the money on security in that case, or in the right areas for security.
And I differentiate medical between running a hospital network and someone who's manufacturing a heart and lung machine. So the heart and lung machine, that's got to be ASVS level 3, and you see laws backing that statement up. You got to do threat modeling and document it clearly before you in the world of medical now, and that's only going to increase more and more. A lot of the people in the formal methods world even think that you're going to be forced to do a full formal model of your hardware and software of medical devices in the future as well, where your average hospital that's managing the IT system of a hospital, I'd be happy if they were ASVS level 1 from the things that I've seen. That's a fair point. But you buy a device that's going to monitor someone's heart and lungs and really support their life. You're usually going to run that off network as an isolated device. Hopefully you bought that from a manufacturer that does ASV level assurance and can still provide some benefit to that individual's life.
Yeah. So, Daniel, I have a question. You engage with pen test firms from time to time, I would imagine, working where you work. What's the dialogue like when you ask them for a pen test? You go, oh, well, I want you to verify our level 2 controls, or I want you to verify, that however deeper in the stack we're, level 3. Do you give them, if it's a level 3 pen test for this engagement, or if it's for looking for level 3 controls in this case, do you give them access to source code, or do you give them source code regardless of the pen test? What's the dialogue like when you're engaging pen test companies?
So we're trying to change it. Prior to joining the bank, I helped run a company called SensePost, which is a very, very good pen testing firm. Mm-hmm. And pen testing as an industry is going through a bit of a crisis because it just hasn't modernized. It's still very waterfall. At the end of the project, we'll do a pen test and we'll take 5 days and we'll give you a report.
Right.
Cool. That was great in 2002. So what we're trying to do is saying, right, that model doesn't work anymore. What we want you to do is come in during a sprint. You're going to sit with developers. We're going to buddy you up. Let's say it's an application. You're going to do a level 2 assessment. And you're not going to give me a report because I'm not a desk jockey. I don't understand reports. What you're going to do is log a defect in Jira, and it's going to get confirmed and verified, and a fix is going to be made, rinse and repeat. So we try and work it that way because that's, in my mind, in my opinion, the only way testing should be done now. Because this old adage of a report and PDF, it just doesn't work. But to answer your question, we're now trying to say, you will be testing this against level 2. We don't really do much level 3 at the moment, but most of it is level 2. We expect that from you. The developers are expecting it. Everybody has an idea of what's going to be looked at.
I see. And so when you say they come in during a sprint, are they going to have access to your code repos to be able to do code review? Is that what you're wanting them to do, or to go through what you're planning on releasing in the sprint and going, okay, are you doing X, Y, and Z? What does that look like? Because I'm very interested in this because I'm a PM working for a pen test company, and we don't do a lot of this. We do a lot of the typical, we have an environment, we come in, we test your stuff. It has to be done by the end of the month. So we give you a 2.5 week engagement and we give you a report.
Yeah, so it depends if they're doing a code review. That will be a separate thing. But in this case, I'm a firm fan of just give people what they need. There's no point trying to hide stuff from a pen tester because at the end of the day, they come in with unique skills. Mm-hmm. So you want them to find as many bugs and many issues as possible. By denying them access to stuff that's going to help them get that quicker, it's a fool's game. It really is. Right. You're not going to get the best bang for your buck. So in this case, it's what do you need? Okay, you're testing an API. Do you want to see the code? Right, mm-hmm. There's the repo. Go and have a look at the code.
Right.
Oh, you found some bugs. Cool. Rinse and repeat type thing.
Okay, that's pretty good. I like that. I like that idea. Depending on how many inputs, how many endpoints you have for your API, with APIs, that's can be quite weighty. And I can understand if with the DevOps and everything being high speed, high turnaround, that you would want somebody in a seat with you. But at that point, why don't you just involve your own security people in the process instead of having a pen tester?
You've assumed that we haven't. Obviously we're a heavy regulated industry, mm-hmm. So we still have to get tests done.
Right.
But as with anybody doing the whole DevOps thing where security is involved, we do that.
Okay.
But this is more of a final regulatory compliance type thing that says, right, have you done this? Yes, an external company has come in and validated it and confirmed we're going live. Everybody's happy.
Okay. All right, Jim. You work for a company very similarly. How does the process work for you guys?
I run my own suite of businesses, so I just do whatever I want because I'm the owner and boss, and then that's how it ends.
Must be nice.
Any questions?
Must be
Any
nice.
questions?
You sit on mounds of money, and
No, I sweep the floors and do the paperwork and handle invoicing, and I work. it takes, but no, I'm not a pen test firm. My focus is educating developers on how to write secure software. My firm is all training. I work with Ron Paris. I work with Jimmy Mesta, Dr. Philip DeRick, and several other educators. We teach developers how to write secure code. And I'm working on a Kubernetes security product to defend Kubernetes setup. So I don't do assessment. That's not my world. I hire people to do that for me, right? So I focus on the defense side of the house.
Yeah, so you teach developers how to write secure code. So you basically undo about 3.5 years of college and then teach them how to do it properly.
It's funny. Stanford came up with the secure coding program. Other universities have done secure coding programs, but students don't take it. They're usually electives. So you want to change the problem we have at school, then you got to make secure coding not an elective anymore, but a core part of the curriculum. I don't see that happening yet. And, and usually students coming out of school, they know the basics of programming. They know their Dr. Knuth algorithms. They know some programming, and a good educator should be able to build on top of that core knowledge, not undo it, just build on top of it to teach them how to do what they already do well in a more secure fashion. So I'm not trying to undo a developer's knowledge. In fact, when I enter a class like that, I'm doing them a disservice. I'm telling them they're wrong, and I don't want to do that. I just want to explain to developers, look, it's not in your framework, it's not in your language. Your boss isn't telling you how to do it right. You don't have requirements if you're not using ASVS to do it right. Your framework's going to mess up. You didn't learn about it in school, so you're set up to lose. That's why we have these specialized classes. There's many other educators besides me. And again, we're not trying to attack or negate the education they got. This is just specialized postgraduate education to become a security engineer, which is very uncommon in schools today. So, and these subtle things are important. I've been teaching for a long time. If I go in there with an attitude like I have to fix you and I have to undo what you've done, and they're not going to listen to me. So I've got to go in there in a supportive, respectful way, or I fail to do my job. And this is a subtle point, Brian. Please don't get me wrong here. It's when you show up in a room full of 30 developers and like 10 of them are architects, and the combined hours of development in the crew is significant. If you start to screw up in front of developers like once or twice, they will block you out for days. So to address these subtle concerns of communication during education, I think is really critical. But I digress.
Yeah, I would imagine you've walked in some fairly adversarial rooms.
Yeah, I try to turn them into friends because we're all. I'm a teacher by trade, but I'm just a student. I'm still learning this stuff as well.
Right. Secure
coding is a black hole of knowledge. There's no end to it. The rabbit hole doesn't end, dude. It does not.
Right on. So I think Mr. Betcher, Ms. Berlin, do you have any additional questions here? I want to give them the last word, and then we'll end the show.
I just have a question on section 10, code integrity controls. It says, verify that code analysis tool is in use that can detect potentially malicious code, such as time functions, unsafe file operations, and network connections. Now, that's a level 3 requirement. Wouldn't a
which
lot
one
of...
which one are you on again?
10.1.
Page 50.
10.1.1. Wouldn't a lot of, run-of-the-mill code analysis tools do that by default?
Definitely not. Not in my experience. No.
Okay. Can you explain exactly what they're trying to detect or give examples? I'm not clear on that one.
And what the tools are trying to detect, or what we want them to?
Well, the tools, more like, okay, something that can detect potentially malicious code. What potentially malicious code? Are you talking about someone who breaks into the code repository and inserts malicious code like that? I mean, how is that even detected if you're not looking at logins, logouts, things like that?
Yep, it's a valid question. The first part, I've lost a lot of faith in code analysis tools. It's the RSA effect. They fix the world, but when you actually start using them in the real world, it's like, oh my God, you didn't even find that basic flaw. So what we're trying to say here is that one of your examples is a perfect one. Somebody managed to breach the network, and they've done some good reconnaissance on who key developers are, gain access to the repo, and plant some kind of backdoor. And it could be subtle. It could be one that allows a adversary to log in on a device using a special PIN, or it could be something more in your face, where every time you take out £10, you actually get £50 type thing. What we're trying to say there is we need something that looks for untoward malicious code. We could probably word this a lot better, if I'm being honest here. But at the same time, like, this stuff is actually rare, and it's also damn hard to detect. This is why it's level 3.
Okay.
And what is a time function? Is that like I forget the term now. Like I quit the company, but I'm putting in a time bomb.
Yeah, exactly. Think of something like this. Think of a one line of code that says, if the current date is greater than March 5th, 2020, then add €100 to account number 37125872291, and this operation happens once an hour. Something like that. I can squeeze it into one line of code, and I can take that one line of code and shove it like 500 characters to the right of my IDE, so it's not even visual in the IDE, and it compiles and works. It's functional. Will static analysis pick this up? Usually not. This is something that requires specialized review. And again, this is a backdoor. This is this whole section's about developers not putting vulnerabilities in per se, but putting functionality in that's meant to do malicious activity. How do I know that increase in funds is not a legit part of the system or not? The compiler doesn't know this. That's a business logic thing. That's something that's not a technical vulnerability. It's not like obvious SQL injection or cross-site scripting. It's just a function call incrementing some numbers at a certain time. Who cares? So we need specialized review to find this class of backdoors. In fact, I'm going to cite my buddy Jeff Williams. So Jeff Williams wrote a paper at Black Hat about backdooring Java, and wrote a paper with about with like 30 different examples of insane backdoors in Java that no static analysis in that era picked up. So I wish I could, it's a black hat talk that changed my mind about this topic, which helped inform us about Section 10 here. Yo, Jeff.
Would team, code reviews, manual, get this? I'm a developer in a big company or whatnot, and I don't know how code reviews actually, like peer reviews or whatnot. Would that be almost a requirement for level 3?
Absolutely. Level 3 is where automation starts to fail, and lots of level 3 requires manual expert pen testing. Absolutely.
So to give you an idea, there was actually a real world case where this was, it gives us inspiration. It was in China, in Beijing, where a developer actually added a backdoor into an ATM because he found that the ATM didn't log withdrawals made around midnight. So what he did was he added a backdoor that allowed him to test the loophole without setting off an alarm. And then for, I think it was a year or 2 years, he withdrew money, but it didn't, debit from his account. And he stole about $1 million from ATMs. So this is the kind of thing we're looking at. It's incredibly rare, but it does happen.
Well, it looks like you guys are trying to take all the fun out of, programs like Excel 95 and 97 with 10.2.6, where you're trying to get rid of Easter eggs or unwanted functionality. I thought you were going to talk about taking all the fun out of stealing millions of dollars from the bank. Well, yeah, you're taking all the fun out of that too. With that. I'm like, okay, yeah. Office Space is still a valid, a movie for a reason. So, But Ms. Berlin, do you have any additional questions?
No, I'm good.
Are you sure? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. All right. So Daniel, I'll let you have any closing thoughts or last thoughts or anything, and then I'll go to Jim, and then we'll finish the show.
Wow, that's a deep moment. I guess this standard isn't anything without community. Otherwise, it's just 5 blokes who, are really passionate about this. What we all love and really have learned to appreciate is when people look at the standard and go, my God, they're idiots. Why do they do this? And do a git pull. So please, use the standard, because we're trying to make life a lot easier for everybody on both sides of the fence, but it can only be done with lots of people looking at it.
Understood. Okay. Jim, how about you? Any last thoughts or comments?
I'm really honored to be a part of the ASVS team. I really want to thank Andrew Vanderstock and Josh Grossman. Really stepped up and put the just a mammoth amount of effort into the constant flow of requirements come in. So I'm just real honored to be a part of the team. And again, Brian,
yes,
looking forward to your GitHub centric feedback on as many of these requirements that you want to comment in, because feedback from people like you is what makes ASVS great. So thank you for your future contribution, Brian.
I'm just filthy management type. I only manage like the talented people who would have that kind of input for these things, but I'll definitely see what I can do.
Thank you, sir.
Sure. No problem. All right. So, Daniel, we'll get back to you first. How would people get a hold of you if they wanted to talk about ASVS, talk about, how to, Jim's actually been helpful about telling people how to contribute, but if there's other ways that they can contribute or help out with that, like writing, for instance. I know not all of us in technical fields are very, very capable writers. So if there's any writers out there, tech writers or anything, how would they get a hold of you and help out?
So I guess the easiest at the moment is it's email, daniel@owasp.org, or Twitter. They're probably the most used mediums I've got at the moment.
All right. And what's your handle on Twitter?
@dcuthbert.
Cuthbert. Okay. Very cool. All right, Jim, how about you? If people wanted to, figure out how to do secure training or anything like that, or, want to pick your brain about various topics.
Yeah, definitely. I'm easily reached at jim@manico.com, MANICODE.com. And always happy to answer questions about secure coding or ASVS or anything similar.
Awesome.
You can also reach me on Twitter at Manicode, MANICODE. Thanks.
Nice. Okay. Mr. Betcher, you've got a lot going on. You're a developer of LogMD. How would people get a hold of you if they wanted to discuss all things Windows logging and working on?
You can get a hold of me at my website. I'm co-founder of LogMD and the project there. So get a hold of me on log-md.com. Read all about it.
Okay. And there's a BDIR podcast, Bring Down Incident Response podcast, coming up soon.
That's true. We're thinking about a topic now. So that'll be out, I don't know, in the next week or two. It's a monthly podcast, and we talk about all things incident response.
Very cool. Okay. Ms. Berlin, you've got a lot going on too. Why don't you tell us a little bit about Hackers Health and your charity and such?
Yeah, so Megan will be running the Mental Health and Wellness Workshop Village at B-Sides Austin this next week. I will not be there because I had to switch all my crap around because my kid's school is stupid. So I will be on the beach. And then what's next after that? I'll be at B-Sides Nashville with it. And then after that is B-Sides San Antonio and the R8 conference. And then possibly 44Con on the horizon soon too. And yeah, I've been really busy with that.
Okay, very nice. And people can get a hold of you how?
So on Twitter at InfoSystir, INFOSYSTIR, or at Hackers Health.
Nice. Okay. So I'm working on Project Hannibal's coming along swimmingly. We've made some headway with that with a little help of my friends. You'll hear more about that hopefully in the next month or so, depending on how slow
is that a teaser?
It's always been a teaser. It still has been a teaser. I'm trying to make proper headway on that. Hopefully everybody will be excited when it happens. But so it's coming along. So. We have a podcast on our Twitter handle, which is at Brakesec, BRAKESEC, and you can follow myself, Brian Brake, on Twitter at Brian Brake, BRYANBRAKE. And we have a Slack, which is very active. We have a web app security channel. We have reverse engineering. We have a logging channel, which is one of our more popular ones, all about SIMs and logging. We have a red team and a pen testing channel. We have a bunch of stuff going on. We have a book club, which David Sybuck, one of our moderators, is running, and it runs every other week. Of course, we have an Asia European book club ran by JB, who runs that on a Saturday morning U.S. time. If you're interested in getting there, we're doing Chris Hadnagy's book, Human Hacking, which we had him on the show a little while ago at the end of last year to talk about. Went over really well, and Chris Hadnagy's an awesome person. So if you're interested, you can join our Slack by emailing us at bds.podcast@gmail.com, or you can DM Brakesec, and we'll get you an invite into the Slack here. It's a very active group of folks in there. Just elevated one of our other users. Her handle's Director of InfoSec, but she's a CISO at a company, and we trust her enough to give her moderator access, so that was awesome. So we welcome her to our fold as moderators. It is a moderated Slack. So we have a Patreon. Thanks to our listeners who, it's a listener-supported podcast. We don't take sponsors yet. So we like the money to be able to handle Zoom and web hosting and the other items that we have to do to keep the podcast going. So we appreciate that. We are looking for maybe a few extra bucks to maybe do transcription services, because we have been asked by more than one person if transcripts are available. And unfortunately, the cost for that's going to be fairly high. So we're looking at ways to make that happen, so that I'm not spending 4 to 6 hours trying to transcribe a podcast, because I suck at it. Yeah, we have a T-shirt shop. If you want a T-shirt with the Breaking Down Security logo, or one with Ms. Berlin's face on it, ironically, it's a big seller.
I don't know why more people don't have that one, honestly.
It's a big seller. Yeah, I've got one right now. I'm wearing it right now. And so, yeah, if you're interested in the show notes, you can go to our TPub site and get a shirt, and you can actually get coffee mugs and stickers and other things too. They'll print up whatever you want on our logo and her face on anything you want, I think. So if you're interested in doing that, you can go there.
That's a hefty promise.
Well, maybe not the face bit, but yeah. And yeah, we get a small cut of the profits on that. So that could also be ways you can help the show if you want to. So we're on iTunes. If you leave feedback anywhere on your favorite podcast catchers, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, the iTunes shop, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, Spotify. We're on that as well. So you have no place that you can't find us. So I learned a lot, gentlemen. Thank you. This has also given me ideas for spawning additional shows for some of the topics that have come up in here. So maybe things on like user stories and such to help companies better understand, the security model. So those are things that we're going to maybe talk about in the future. So thank you for doing that. And there are show notes on the GitHub for ASVS if you want to help out with that. GitHub.com/OWASP/ASVS if you want to go and do comments or make corrections or and I'll be in there obviously helping out as well with feedback. So at some point in the near future. So that was it, I think, for this week. Breaking down security here from the world headquarters just outside of Seattle. Have a great week. Be nice to one another, please. Take care of yourselves because you're the only you have. And we'll talk to you again soon.
Bye-bye.
See ya.
Thanks for having us.